In this episode, Banasa fights Fenris, the warrior of the Lupine people, who advances towards Banasa. And he chooses the meteoric leap spell. He is impressed by his ability, but before he is hit by Fenris, he uses the earth wall spell and manages to defend himself. Fenris gets angry, and then he uses the whirlwind ability. Fenris uses his ability to get out of the whirlpool, but Banasa uses the gravity spell, knocking Fenris down. She doesn't understand because she can't move and Banasa has to restrain her as long as he can. The system gives a recommendation to use subjugation magic. That spell enslaved the target, making Banasa control his thoughts and actions. Banasa feels he can't do that and decides to reduce the activated spell a little, and the system recommends the subjugation spell again. Banasa refuses because in his world he didn't like what humans did to half-humans. Fenris uses various spells to try to free herself, but is unsuccessful, and her mana runs out, and she surrenders. She asks Fenris to kill her, and he says he doesn't want to kill her. He didn't even like fighting in the first place, and deactivates the spell. She didn't understand because she was a demon warrior who fought against humans, and he would let her live. Banasa says he doesn't care if she's a demon or a human, he just didn't want to kill someone who surrendered, which impresses Fenris. Fenris tells Banasa that he is naive and undoes his transformation into a beast. The problem is that she comes back without any clothes on, so he is embarrassed and covers her with his clothes. Banasa said that if she promised not to clash with the humans, she could go wherever she wanted, but she couldn't go without clothes. Then he remembers that he might have some clothes in his magic bag, but just as he was about to look for them, he sees the girl lying on the ground, having fallen asleep because she had used up all her mana according to the system. He was less worried because it was nothing serious. Some time passes, the sun is setting, he makes a fire and sees that there are several different types of magic, and remembers when people thought he was lying because he used teleportation. He didn't understand why he had such powerful magic until Fenris woke up frightened. But he sees that he's in a tent and Banasa is outside. Fenris looks at him, who is on his back, thinking that she is resistant to magic and couldn't do anything about it. She thought humans were a fragile race. She sees that her magic has been completely restored and asks if he used healing magic on her while she was asleep. Banasa said yes, and it seemed to have worked. Fenris tells Banasa that anyone else would have killed him and removed his skin, and then she swears never again to enter into conflict with humans for no reason. She takes Banasa's hand and says that he possesses such immense power that she identifies him as her master, and would dedicate her life to repaying her debt to him. But Banasa says she doesn't have to do that. And she calls him my master, but he tells her not to call him that. Fenris told him that she would carry his burdens, be his slave, or whatever he wanted. She just wanted to be by his side. Banasa didn't need anyone to carry loads or be a slave. He had no desire to own people like that. And then she starts making a crying fox noise, and Banasa tells her that it won't do any good, he won't change his mind. If he says no, it's no. Fenris says that if it's not possible to keep him, the only thing left is to die. Banasa is startled and says that he understood and that she could go with him, she just didn't have to do that. Fenris suddenly becomes very happy. Banasa explains that he wasn't actually from that world. The world he came from was different. He was summoned to be a candidate for the great hero, but he didn't have any skills, and they didn't send him back to his old world, and he was left there. So he activates the magic of changing his appearance. And she sees her master in his true guise, and he explains that he changed so that the people in the castle wouldn't go after him. He didn't know what to do next, not even where to go, so Fenris accompanying him would only make her life harder. He bet she would regret it. But Fenris doesn't care, she wants to stay with him. She's a Lupine, and they live only for the one they recognize as master. That's the rule of Lupines. No matter who he was or where he came from, she would be loyal to Banasa and live with him for the rest of her life. And she asks him to let her stay by his side, calling him master. Then she hugs him and he asks her to stop. Then, in the castle, the king asks the great hero what happened. The king sent his forces to attack the demon lord's army, but they were defeated. The big blonde-haired hero wonders why the soldiers who were sent on that mission panicked and broke formation at the sight of a simple magical beast. Before he knew it, they had all been wiped out. He did everything in his power to save as many of them as possible. The king understands that the hero is blaming the soldiers, so he asks the guard how he did on the battlefield. The guard said that he ran away when the soldiers were fighting and shouted at the others while putting all the responsibility on the soldiers. Several of the king's men had shown their displeasure with him. The great hero is frustrated because he's been training for a month and his skills haven't improved. He wouldn't stand a chance against any beast with a greater degree of strength, until Tsuya calls him, saying that waiting for him is her duty as a servant. The blonde hero said that she had come at a good time and told her to accompany him, as he was going to offer her all the luxuries with the castle's money, and she followed him. Next, we see Banaza saying that he needed to earn money if he wanted to survive in that world. He tells Fenris that he would go to an adventurer's guild to find work and then find an inn to spend the night. Fenris understood and said he would accompany him, calling him master. Banaza tells Fenris that it still bothers him to hear her call him master. She could just say his name. Until a market vendor calls Fenris his lady wife and asks if she wants a vegetable or two. Fenris doesn't understand. Banaza explains that perhaps the market vendor understood that the two were married. For Banaza, making other people think that they are a couple can make it easier to travel together without looking suspicious, and he asks her if everything is all right. She says she will be his wife. There is no greater honor for a lupine woman than to have a strong husband. She couldn't believe she could be the wife of a man as strong as him. Banaza explains that they were only going to pretend, but she says it doesn't matter, calling him darling and hugging his hand. Banaza doesn't understand anything. Then they go to the Adventurers Guild and the place is full. Fenris finds it interesting that humans use it to display information. Banaza shows that he also uses it, and Fenris understands that it suits Banaza, calling him sweetheart again. She is embarrassed and he asks what happened. Fenris says that her race performs a wedding ritual where the couple swallows some of the bones of a prey they have hunted together, taking shared possession of it. The idea of having a matching accessory reminded her of that. Banaza keeps hoping in the back of his mind that she won't tell him to swallow bones. The receptionist asks her which name she would like to register under. Before Fenris could say his name, Banaza said he was going to register as Rise. And after that moment, she apologizes to him, saying that she forgot that they were avoiding using their real names. Banaza tells her not to worry. Banaza doubts very much that anyone would discover her in that form. Banaza asks her to live as a human from now on, so she should get used to it little by little. Suddenly, a bell rings and the receptionist says she has an urgent mission. A large group of psychobears was spotted to the north of there. They were heading towards the city at that moment. Rumor had it that they had defeated the great hero's army. The receptionist says that there is no rank requirement. Adventurers of any category can take part. This time, the reward per bear killed would be multiplied by 10. Banaza finds it very profitable, but seems to avoid it. Fenris says that he could easily defeat an army of psychobears. Banaza said he had no chance, that he was no match for him. However, Fenris said she would hunt them down alone. After all, if she won, it would prove her strength, as Banaza had defeated her. And then they teleported to where the psychobears were. There were a few houses over there, and the guild said there was an empty house they could use. Banaza and Fenris were going to use the house as a base to defeat the psychobears. Fenris says she could deal with the psychobears on her own, but Banaza says he can't let her go alone because he wanted to test a spell. Fenris says that as long as they're together, she bets that even the demon lord could be defeated. Suddenly, they hear a scream and run in the direction they heard it. There they meet the psychobears and the 4 girls they had met earlier. The girls try to fight off the psychobears, but they are stronger. When one of the bears is about to kill a girl, Banaza uses a lightning spell to defend her, but the lightning strikes several bears at once. Fenris also struck one of the bears that was about to attack the mage. Then Fenris complains that Banaza was too nice. The girls recognize him as Fleo, as he introduced himself earlier. They thank him because if it weren't for him, they would be dead. Ballyrosa even says that they were worried about what had happened to him, even though they knew he could defeat that monster. But Fenris was offended to hear this, and Banaza tried to cover Fenris' identity by saying that she was Rise, his traveling companion. And she gets frustrated because he doesn't introduce her as his wife. Banaza asks what they are doing there, but before they can answer, a gigantic bear appears on Fenris' back and tries to attack her, but as soon as she looks at it, it freezes and falls to the ground. Banaza wondered if the bear had realized that he was no match for her. And then the bear starts bowing to Fenris, which she finds quite honorable. For Banaza, it wasn't simply something that could be ignored. Fenris thinks about making that psycho bear a subordinate to her and Banaza. Banaza tries to correct her by saying that she meant a pet. The four girls find it strange to put that psycho bear as a pet. Fenris explains that having a ferocious plague that outnumbered even the great hero's army would be great for her and Banaza's list of achievements. Banaza thinks it's a good idea to stop him from attacking people again, so he uses his restraining magic. That puts a kind of collar with a bell on the bear and perhaps stops it from becoming ferocious again. But you couldn't carry that psycho bear around, so he uses the magic of change of appearance. As far as Fenris was concerned, he now lacked grandeur. The four girls watch the two of them talking and find it bizarre what they look like. Then, at the house the guild left for them to use, the girls thank them again. They introduce themselves formally. Ballyrosa is a Clyrode rider, Blossom is a heavy rider. Bilary is also a knight, and Bolano is a sorceress who specializes in defensive magic. Ballyrosa asked him to train them, because the great hero's army had been defeated by the Psycho Bears, and so he said that he would only defeat the Demon Lord when he found warriors who could be his right-hand man. The king gave the urgent order for everyone to dedicate themselves to combat until they could kill beasts on the level of the Psycho Bears. As they were new to the order, they were unable to defeat the Psycho Bears. Banaza thinks that even he doesn't know how to use his magic. Meanwhile, Fenris is there dying of jealousy, saying that they were shameless women. Banaza says that he presented Fenris as his traveling companion, but in reality she was his wife, and all he wanted was to live a peaceful life with her. And Ballyrosa is shocked that Banaza is married. Blossom understands that it would be bad to disturb them. Fenris thinks it's a good idea to train them in real combat. Banaza doesn't understand a thing, and Fenris stands there smiling. Fenris says that she, like no one else, understands that her husband is a kind man who cannot abandon those in need. Like his wife, she will accept Banaza's decision. Banaza thinks she has a distorted view of him because he's not such a good guy that he can give more than he has for charity, but he would like to help them. And then he decides that he will help them. All the girls are happy and grateful. Bilary says it's dangerous to camp in that area, and he wouldn't be able to rent out his space, the room would be enough. Fenris answered for Banaza, saying that it was fine for them to stay because there were plenty of rooms, and it would be fine for her to share a bed with him because they were married, and that's what a couple normally does, and Banaza was shocked to hear this. Voluminous goes to the Demon Lord to report that the purification spell was not cast by the mages of the Kingdom of Clyrode, but by an individual. Voluminous asks what they are going to do. The Demon Lord asks to find the individual and capture him at any cost.